Haboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Chof Amud Beis, starting with Daf Kuf Chof Amud Aleph, almost halfway down the Amud. The Gemara discusses now the mitzvah of matzah bizmanenu. Says the Gemara Amar Rove, matzah bizman hazeh di'oraisa umoror dirabbanan. Bizmanenu, when we don't have Beis HaMikdash, we don't have a Korban Pesach, the mitzvah of matzah remains dioraisa, but the mitzvah of moror is dirabbanan. Maishna moror, asked the Gemara, why is moror different? When it comes to eating the moror, it's only a mitzvah dirabbanan. Says the Gemara, Dichsiv, it says in the pasuk, al matzos umororim yoichluhu, that you should eat the matzah and the moror together with the Korban Pesach. So bisman the ika Pesach yesh moror, bisman the leka Pesach leka moror. When we have the Korban Pesach, then there's also a mitzvah d'oraisa to eat more. But since we don't have a Korban Pesach, then the mitzvah of more remains only d'rabbanan. Ask the Gemara, matzah nami hoksiv al matzahs umororim yoichluhu. The same passage that we just brought to explain why more is only d'rabbanan also implies that the matzah should also be d'rabbanan. Since we don't have the Korban Pesach, and it says, on matzahs and more you shall eat the Korban Pesach with. So if you don't have the Korban Pesach, the same way that the moror is d'rabbanan, the matzah is also d'rabbanan. Answers the Gemara, matzah mihada hader bekro. The Torah comes and brings another pasuk in regards to matzah. Ba'erev toichlu matzos. On the night of the Seder, Tesvav at night, there's a mitzvah to eat matzos. And therefore matzah, even bizmanenu, without the Korban Pesach, is deraisa, says Rava. However, Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Omar, he is cholik. Echad zeh vechad zeh d'rabbanan. Both matzah and moror bizmanenu is d'rabbanan. Elo, asked the Gemara, haksiv ba'erev toichlu matzos. Behold, it states in the Torah, on this night, the night of the 15th, you will eat matzos. So it implies that the Torah requires one to eat matzos even without, independent of the Korban Pesach. Answers the Gemara, that pasuk of Ba'erev Toichlu Matzos is reserved for those who cannot bring a Korban Pesach on Yud Daled B'Nisan. They have to then bring Korban Pesach Sheni. As a result, we need the pasuk Ba'erev Toichlu Matzos to teach me that in regards to the matzos, they still have a chiyuv to eat matzos. The Salke Daita Chamina, for I might have thought to say, Kivan the Pesach loy ochli matzah umor nami lo inechel. I might have thought that since they don't eat the Korban Pesach, those who are tamei and are considered to be derech rechoika, they also will not then have requirement to the matzah. On that, the pasuk says ba'erev toichlu matzos. Now the Gemara does say that it's matzah umor nami lo nechel. I might have thought that it's really only going on the matzah. That really, indeed, they don't eat the more, but the matzah, they do have a chiyuv, as the pasuk tells us, be'erev toichlu matzos kamash malan, they're chayiv to eat those matzos on Tesvav of Nisan. V'Rava amar loch, and Rava, what will he say to you in regard to the ones who are tamei and who are derech rechoika, who need the pasuk be'erev toichlu matzos to teach you that they're chayiv in matzos? Tamei v'sheyeh b'derech rechoika lo tzorich ro, they don't need a pasuk by itself. They are not any less than the orel, the one who's uncircumcised, and the ben nechar, the one who's estranged, who denies the prohibition of avodah zarah. The Tanya, because it states in that pasuk regarding them, kol orel lo yoichal boy. Anybody who's not circumcised shall not eat the Korban Pesach. From here we make a diuk. Boy, einoi oichel, aval oichel matzah umor. They don't eat it. They don't eat the Korban Pesach, but they do eat the matzah and the moror. And therefore, I don't need the pasuk be'erev toichlu matzah to teach me that they're eating the matzah. They already have a chiyuv to eat the matzah in regards to the orel and the ben nechar. So we can learn from them to the tamei and the one who is derech rechoika. The idoch and the other one, referring to Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, ksiv bahai v'ksiv bahai. He said they're both written in the Torah to teach that you have to eat the matzahs on Tesvav B'Nisan. You might have thought that indeed, when it comes to those who are tamei and those who are derech rechoika, since they do bring the Korban Pesach Sheni a month later, and they will be eating the matzah then, therefore they don't have to eat the matzah at night on Tesvav ben Nisan. On that, the Torah says, "Be'erev toichlu matzah." So therefore, I need a pasuk to eat each and every one of them. The Gemara now brings a support for Rava that indeed matzah bizmanenu is deraisa. Tanya kavasi de Rava. Sheishes yomim toichal matzos uvay mashvi atzeres lashem elokecha. The Torah says, for 6 days you shall eat matzos. On the 7th day, it will be atzeres lahashem elokecha. Ask the Gemara that bring the Brisa explains mashvi rishus af sheishes yamim rishus. Just as the 7th day, which separates itself from the 6 days, only started off by saying sheishes yamim toichal matzos, and then it separates and says uvay mashvi atzeres lashem elokecha. As mashma, there's not a chiyuv to eat matzos on the 7th day. So just as the 7th day is a rishus, so too the 6 days are also a rishus. My taimo, asked the Brisa, what's the reason? They have a davar shahaya bechlal. It's because there's a matter that was included. That means the pasuk, the Torah says in another pasuk, for 7 days you shall eat matzos. So that's a klal. That's brought in a klal. V'yotza min klal lelamed, and then now it goes out from the klal to teach me. It goes out from that klal to teach me that it's not all 7 days that there's a chiyuv to eat. But rather, there's only indeed going to be, it says, 6 days. Lo lelamed al atzma yotza, el lamed al klal kulo yotza. It's saying over here, don't come to teach me that on 7 days you're chayiv to eat matzos, but rather to teach me that just like the one that is yotze min haklal, you're only going to have a chiyuv of it's not a chiyuv, it's a reshus, because it says sheishes yomim. So too then, all 7 days are also only rishus. Yachal, I might think, af laila harishoin rishus. I might think the first night also is rishus because that's included in the 7 days. Talmud loymar al matzos umerorim yochlu. For that, the pasuk says that on matzos and mor you shall eat together with a korban pesach. So therefore, there's a chiyuv midiraisa, a chiyuv to eat matzos. The Brisa continues, Ein li ela bizman shebeis hamikdosh kayim. That's only when there's a korban pesach, when there's a beis hamikdosh, is there a chiyuv then to eat matzos. However, otherwise I'll say it's a reshus the first night. Bizman she'ein beis hamikdosh kayim minayin. How do I know there's a chiyuv to eat matzos even when we don't have a beis hamikdosh? Talmud loymar ba'erev toichlu matzos. Hakosuv kavoy choyva. For that, the Torah says with a different pasuk, ba'erev toichlu matzos, to require a chiyuv to eat matzos on Leil Tes Vov. The Mishnah now brings certain halachos in regards to eating the korban pesach. Says that the Mishnah, Yashnu miktsoson yoichlu, kulon lo yoichlu. If some of the chabura, miktsas of the chabura, sleep, they fall asleep after beginning to eat the korban pesach, then yoichlu, they can continue when they wake up to eat the korban pesach. However, kulon, if they all fell asleep together, the entire chabura, after starting to eat the korban pesach, then lo yoichlu, then they may not continue to eat when they wake up. We're on top of Kuf Chof Amud Beis. Rabbi Yossi argues, he says, nisnamnemu yoichlu, nirdemu lo yoichlu. He says, if they merely just doze off, then they may eat. If they fall asleep, then they may not eat. So some Rishonim explain that Rabbi Yossi is being machmir, and he's saying that, going back on the Reisha of the Tanakama said that if some of them fell asleep, when they wake up, they can continue eating. Comes along Rabbi Yossi and says, when is that true? He qualifies. He says, that's only when they doze off. But if they fell asleep completely, even miktzas, then when they wake up, they cannot go ahead and continue eating the korban pesach. The Mishnah continues, ha-pesach achar chatzois metames hayadayim. The korban pesach after chatzois is metames hayadayim. That means that you can only eat the pesach until chatzois, according to this Tana. And after chatzois, it becomes noisar, and therefore it's metames yadayim, as the Mishnah says now, hapigul v'hanoisar metames yadayim. both pigul and noiser, the chachamim were goizer that they are metayim es hayadayim. When one touches the meat of pigul or the meat of noisar, his hands become tamei. Now, midi araisa, there's no such thing as a hand alone being tamei. Midi araisa, a person completely becomes tamei, his entire body. When any part of his body comes in contact with an avatuma, then his body becomes a rishon letuma. But over here, we're talking about a gezeira dirabanan, where they're goizer on the yadayim alone, tuma, which has the status of a sheni. That means that they're goizer on the pigul and the noise to be a rishon, that will metama the yadayim as being a sheni. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosi Oimer, Nisnamnamu yoichlu, nirdemu lo yoichlu. Rabbi Yosi said in the Mishnah that if they doze off, then they shall still eat. And we explain that to mean if miktsas of the chabura doze off, when they wake up, they can continue to eat. However, if they fell asleep, even if it's miktsas, Rabbi Yosi says l'chumra, they may not eat. Ask the Gemara, Heichi dami nisnamnem, what's considered to be that they doze off? What's that referring to? What's the distinction between that and sleeping? Explains the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, nim velo nim, tir velo tir. They are sleeping, but they're not sleeping. They're awake, but they're not awake. Kigon, the Gemara gives an example. The kari lay v'ani, you call that person and he answers. V'loi yada ladure svara, but he's not able to give a svara, something that has logic, something that requires thought. Now, he can say yes or no, but he cannot give you any reasoning for something. So therefore, if you are to then ask him, where is the object? He won't be able to tell you it's on the second shelf. But he will, if you tell him, is the object on the second shelf? He can say yes, or he can say no. That's enough, and that's considered to be nisnamnem. And then again, according to Rabbi Yosi, that meant that if mikzas of the chabura are merely nisnamnem, then indeed they can continue eating after they wake up. And therefore, like I said, you can remind them and they'll remember, and therefore you can say, if is the object on the second shelf, they can say yes, or they'll say no. That's the status of a nisnamnem. Abai hava yosi kamei de Rabba. The Gemara tells us over that Abai visited Rabba. Many explain this to mean then on Leil HaPesach, Leil HaSeder. He came to visit Rabba. He saw that he was dozing off, that Rabbi was dozing off. Abai says to Rabbi, Mar, my master, Rabbi is dozing off. He's telling Rabbi. Rabbi said back to Abaye, Minumi ka misnamnamo. I'm only dozing off. It says in the Mishnah, Nisnamnamu yoichlu, nirdemu lo yoichlu. It says in the Mishnah, those who are Nisnamnamu, and here, since he was together with Abai, it's only miktsas, and therefore, like Rabbi Yosi said over here, it's not a problem. There, indeed, although he started eating, he can continue eating when he wakes up. And nirdemu lo yoichlu. Now let's explain again, why is that nirdemu lo yoichlu? Is because that when a person he eats in one place, he's not allowed to go ahead and leave to eat in another place. So therefore, when a person eats and he falls asleep, that hesech hadas is a hefsek, whereby when he wakes up again, it looks as if he's eating in another place. So therefore, the chachamim, as a chumrah, were goizer that indeed, if a person, according to Rabbi Yosi, if he is going to then fall asleep, even with miktzah still awake, and even if he dozes off, if the entire chabur dozes off, when they come about, then according to Rabbi Yossi again, if mikzas doze off, or if mikzas doze off, then if it's just dozing off, then it's not considered to be a hefsek, whereby when they wake up, they can go ahead and continue to eat. But according to Rabbi Yossi, if indeed they fall asleep, even mikzas, then those mikzas who fell asleep cannot wake up and continue eating, because it's considered to be hesach hadas and a hefsek, as if they're eating in another place.